What's up, Fragrant World? Welcome back to another Stay Fresh production. My name is Justin Copeland. On this channel, Stay Fresh Productions, we talk about everything fragrance related. If you have an interest in that kind of content, then you are in the right place. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss a video, and to be even sure that you truly never miss an upload, make sure you hit that bell icon so you always get notified every time I drop a new video. And if you do like this kind of content, please hit that like button. It really helps with my visibility across this platform. Thank you so much in advance. Today, we have an overdue video. We're doing a Q&A. I'm looking here at my phone. A couple weeks ago, I put a post on my community tab asking for your burning questions, and a number of you did reply with some questions. I have not fielded these at all. I haven't decided which ones I'm going to answer, which ones I'm not, but I am going to prioritize the deeper questions, things that kind of transcend this moment right now, and perhaps some more critical questions. That's really what I'm looking for in order to just, give you some depth in my answers. So again, I haven't really looked at these, but that'll keep it fun. This is completely off the top. So first question we'll start with, I'm going to sort these by newest. The first question that was ever asked was from DA147. Kind of a involved question about, just to summarize, rather than just talking about fragrances that smell good, he's asking about fragrances that are worth the price. Okay, so you're touching on a very common topic, and this is foundational knowledge when it comes to being a fragrance enthusiast, when it comes to collecting. You cannot go off of what anybody says in terms of assuming you're going to like it. You can use people's opinion to find new things to try that maybe you would not have tried otherwise, or maybe you didn't know about. But that's as far as it goes. You cannot expect to love anything that anybody else says that they love. And in terms of what is worth the price, that is up to you. If you love it, then it's worth it. If you don't love it, then it's not. Jay Everyday asks, where are you from? Not where you are currently, I'm just curious, or maybe just the region is fine. Connect with people better knowing where they're from. Okay, originally I'm from Fresno, California. That is Central California in the Central Valley of the state of California. That is my hometown. Christian V asks, if you had the power to create the perfect fragrance for you, what would it smell like? Can mention other brands to make up the fragrance. This would probably be something in the realm of having an aromatic quality, so it would have a freshness to it. I love sweetness in a fragrance, so it needs some kind of sweetness from vanilla or tonka bean or something like that. I would love it to be fresh and cooling and kind of invigorating without being citrusy up top, and as it dries, I'd love for it to get warm and again sweeter, maybe woody, and maybe more central, even has a bit of a gourmand quality. So I like a dynamism in my fragrances, and that is kind of what it would be in terms of a reference. I couldn't really give you a reference. If I were to have a fragrance of my own, I would not really want it to smell like anything else. That's just me. Eve Spider Smells asks, if you could choose a musician from the past to play your compositions, who would it be? Very good question. I've never thought about that. And it seems like a lot to ask of musicians that I greatly respect and even revere, for them to play my music. But probably Freddie Hubbard, one of my favorite trumpet players. He definitely, in his own composing style, he had more straight ahead, hard bop swing kind of music, and he also had some more contemporary, more fusion style music, infusing some other grooves and rhythms in there. I feel like my music kind of does the same thing, and these days it's a little bit more simple, maybe a little bit more towards the pop oriented side of things with some flavor, but still some very captivating melodies. At least that's what I'm going for, and I would love to hear Freddie do that. If you're not familiar with Freddie, I'll link maybe one of his albums or a song down below. Check him out. Raiden X asks, hey Justin, just wanted to ask, what got you into fragrances, vlogging, and creating this channel? And what are your future goals for this channel, music, etc.? Okay, good questions, Raiden. I've been into smelling good, so to speak, as long as I can remember. I mean, at least since I was like 11 or 12 years old, but I didn't really get into fragrances, and I've been wearing fragrances all my life, but I didn't really get into fragrances until about 4 or 5 years ago when I started actually researching them and learned that not only are fragrances created from raw ingredients and nature, which honestly, that alone blew my mind, but also the fact that there's a YouTube community where people actually make videos talking about them. And it was a combination of me learning more about fragrances and me being really interested in sharing my thoughts about them that kind of made me decide to start my YouTube channel as a challenge to myself. I didn't have any goals when I started. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I was thoroughly surprised when people actually were watching my videos and subscribing. So those of you who've been rocking with me since the beginning, thank you so much. You have no idea. You're the reason why I'm still here. And I'm just having a lot of fun. This is a deep passion of mine, and I love to do it. In terms of future goals for the channel, that's something I have been thinking about quite a bit lately. As you may have noticed, over the past year, especially during this pandemic, I have been devoting more time and energy to my YouTube channel. I've been trying to infuse more of myself, use more of my time, and put out better quality content more often. And therefore, I kind of see myself pursuing it more full-time than I was before. For years, I was putting out 1 video a week. Now I'm doing at least 3 to 4 a week, getting up to 12 videos per month instead of just 4. So definitely putting the pedal down to the floor with it. And as a result, again, I've been trying to make this more full-time. So I've been trying to make it a decent portion of my livelihood to actually make some money doing this, to monetize it so I can afford to keep having the time to do it. So in terms of my goals, it is to continue moving in that direction. I want to continue bringing my unbiased, sincere opinions on fragrances that I love or even just like, coming from either ones that I've personally acquired or fragrances that I have been sent for review. There will always be a mix. In terms of making videos forever, I don't necessarily see that. I don't see myself producing content for the next 15, 20 years. I don't think anybody really does that. I'm interested to see what kind of doors may open from this, but at the time being, I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'll keep putting out content and hopefully keep sharing with you guys some fragrances that you may not know about, that aren't talked about very much, and to keep paying my bills so that these lights can stay on. Ren's Lep asks a pretty simple but critical question. Longevity versus projection. What do you prefer and why? I prefer longevity. That's just me. I would prefer a fragrance last 8 to 10 hours, more so than I would rather be flying off of my skin and filling up the room. I feel like I'm getting more out of my fragrance if it lasts longer, mainly because I don't mind people having to get close to me to smell my fragrance, and knowing that it will be there all day, I could give somebody a hug and know that they will smell it. So I definitely prefer longevity. Orlando Gonzalez, what fragrance do you love the most? What fragrance you can't live without? What's your favorite fragrance? These are all synonymous questions. Why is the answer to all the above questions John Varvatos Vintage? Believe it or not, John Varvatos Vintage is not the answer to those questions. I don't have an answer to those questions. There are many fragrances that I really love, and I can't really just pick one. And even if I could, it'll be different next week. I guarantee you that. Aaron Gunarich, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Aaron. What has been your biggest challenge as a content creator? My biggest challenge has not been what people might think. It has not been dealing with the opinions of others. It has not been finding a way to be my authentic self on camera. There are certain things that have been challenges, like figuring out my own voice in regards to describing fragrances. Figuring out, just the time of editing videos and coming up with ideas and filming and all that. But all of that is just very fun labor. I don't mind it. It takes time and effort, but it's not challenging. So my biggest challenge, honestly, has been what I kind of recently talked about. Just this year, making the effort, making the decision that I want to do this more full time. So now the question is, how do I do that? How can I feasibly do that while still living and eating and paying my bills? So it's been some trial and error with that. It definitely has affected the channel, as I've seen in some of the viewership, but it's still above all, I'm still trying to be my most authentic self, but I'm trying to live and I'm trying to do more of this. And in order to do that, you have to strike a balance of, obviously getting money in some form for the work that you're putting in, but still doing the work from a place of love and passion. The love and passion is there. The money is a challenge, but it is something that I'm slowly learning about as I go. And I'll try to do my best to keep you guys as up to date in the process as I can. I actually have a video I'm going to do about this topic pretty soon. Pretty deep video, and I think it's probably going to get some resistance, but I'm going to do it because no one is really talking about it directly, so stay tuned for that. Now, Rory C. Rory, I really appreciate your questions here. I really appreciate your support of my content over these years. I'm reading your question here about describing myself as a person in terms of a note breakdown and in terms of performance and season, and then as a scent profile. It's a good question. I've never really thought about that. I feel like I'm a pretty dynamic person. And the way I described a fragrance, if I could have one, maybe it's kind of the same way. I feel like I have a brightness to me. I feel like I also have a darkness as well. Not in a bad way, but just kind of a depth. A very pensive nature, very thoughtful, maybe over thoughtful sometimes, and often very critical of myself, but all in good intention. So yeah, I think it would go in line with what I said earlier. Something fresh, aromatic, very inviting, very welcoming, but then something a little bit more subdued, warmer, deeper, richer, not quite so loud. I'm definitely an ambivert. When I have to turn on the energy and be in people's faces and be extroverted, I can do that, but only for a limited time. It drains my energy, and then I gotta recharge. So I have extroverted and introverted tendencies. So I feel like the fragrance that I described earlier might go along with that, but that's a great question. Will Desir, are you planning on dropping your own fragrances in the near future? If you do, will it be inspired by music? I would love to drop my own fragrances in the near future, and if I did, yes, it would be inspired by music. Tad at 1969, what's up, man? Good to see you. What's your workout regime, diet, etc.? I am pretty consistent and disciplined with my workout. I have a 3-day rotation that I cycle. First day is upper body, which is all push-ups. I may have talked about this in a vlog a year ago, but it's changed a little bit since then. I do 420 push-ups twice a week, 230 Y split up in 2 sets, and then I do 190 diamond split up in 2 sets. Second day is legs, which is pretty minimal. I just have some basic calisthenic workouts and squats and lunges and jumps and things like that. And then I have a core workout that involves more on the floor work, more plank style things, more even a little bit of yoga is infused in there. And in terms of diet, I'm not super disciplined. Honestly, I just try my best to avoid fast food. I might have it once a month because, sometimes you just gotta get it. I honestly don't eat as much as I should just because I feel like my work-life balance is a little off. Sometimes I'll just edit videos and hours will go by and I'll just forget to eat and I just gotta, I gotta eat. So I'm working on that. So hope that explains it. Tara from Olfactive Files asks, what is one of your favorite songs, compositions, and which fragrance would best embody the feel of that song? Great question, hard to answer. A lot of songs that I really like, I like them for very specific reasons and very different reasons. In terms of a song that really just makes me feel good, it doesn't have to have a ton of depth to it. Honestly, this is a guilty pleasure, but I'm not ashamed to admit it. A song by Beyonce called Party from an album she did almost 10 years ago called 4. Very popular song, very popular album. I love that song, to be honest. According to Spotify, that was my most listened to song this year. Every time it came on, I didn't skip it. I love that song. Got a lot of great memories with that song. Now that that's out of the way, if I were to choose a fragrance to go along with that, probably Ultra Male from Jean Paul Gaultier. I think it's pretty much perfect for that. Eric 41996 asks a very critical question from a non-judgmental perspective. Why own more bottles than you could use in a lifetime? Great question. That's one I used to ask all the time. And at one time I was against owning more than I could use. I approached fragrances from a very utilitarian perspective. If I'm not using it, then I have no need for it. That was what I did. As I've grown in terms of my platform here on YouTube, my viewership, my commitment to this channel and to being a source of knowledge and entertainment, I've had to accept the fact that I'm going to have to own more fragrances perhaps than I need in order to give proper reference and to just have a little bit more credibility. Honestly, that is something that you tend to see across the board. Some of the biggest fragrance reviewers, the ones with the most committed followings, are the ones with some bigger collections. Now, I don't plan on having thousands of fragrances. That is not what I want at all. If you're reviewing fragrances, it makes sense to me. If you're not reviewing fragrances, it's totally okay, because then there's the collector's aspect of it, where, you know, people who collect shoes, they might have a pair of shoes that sits on their shelf for years, and then maybe they'll pull it out every now and then. Should they not have it? Not necessarily. It's about changing your perspective. You don't have to do that. It's changing from utilitarian to perhaps more of a collector's perspective. That is the difference. Scent Assault asks, what kind of advice would Justin today give Justin from 3 years ago? Man, the advice I would give myself is don't feel locked in by any identity. Keep yourself open. Accept that you can be a multifaceted individual in terms of your talents, your gifts, and your pursuits. That is what I would tell my younger self. Gilded Asphalt asks, what's your spray routine? Would be nice to know specific frags and how many sprays you use for them. I'm always curious about people's routine in context of how strong they prefer to smell. Great question. I have not applied my scent of the day. I just spent a little bit of time. I stepped off camera to decide what I wanted to wear, and I think it's going to be this today, which I haven't actually given a full wearing to yet. Encre Noir à l'Extrême from Lalique. Now, I did test this on my hand a couple times. It is an eau de parfum. From my testing, it had some decent longevity. It wasn't overly powerful in terms of projection or anything like that. So on any given day, I actually don't like to smell too strong. This is kind of funny. I count 2 sprays as a full wearing. If I'm gonna put on something even that's way too strong, I gotta put on at least 2 sprays in order for it to be a full wearing for me. But I never go more than 7. And a 7 spray fragrance will generally be a fresher fragrance or one that is pretty weak. So that is my range, from 2 to 7, but typically I hover around 4. So for something like this, I'm gonna spray this 4 times. And especially a fragrance I haven't given a full wearing to, and I know it's not super strong, I'll usually do 4 sprays. First of all, I never spray anywhere near the front of my body. This is because this area of the skin is a little bit more sensitive, and also I don't want the fragrance to be rising up into my nostrils all day, so therefore I kind of go nose blind to it and I'm not able to smell it anymore. I want to smell it all day, so I only put it around the back of my neck. I put 1 spray behind each ear. There's 1. There's 2. I'm going to put 1 on the back of the neck to aid in my sillage trail. And then I'm gonna put 1 under the shirt. That's a personal spray for me. Man, that's really nice. I did do a first impressions on this fragrance in a video I did for my Patreon. If you want to join my Patreon and support me continuing to do this on my journey, then there's a link down below for that. But what I said in that video is this fragrance reminds me a little bit of Incident Diplomatique from Javoy in its treatment to the vetiver. It is an earthy, kind of smoky vetiver, but there's almost like this faux boozy quality to it that I get out of Incident Diplomatique. There's like a wetness to it. It's hard to explain, but very classy stuff. I can see that you gotta love vetiver for this, but it's not quite as inky and as dark as the original. This is good stuff. So that is how I would generally spray most fragrances that have some moderate strength. Gage Foster asks, what are your hobbies outside of fragrances? I mean, I am a musician. I don't consider that a hobby. That is what I do. In fact, that is my main profession. Outside of that, I love to watch movies. I love eating good food, and I do love hanging out with small groups of intimate friends. Ine Oldu asks, my burning question is, how are you always so cool? I guess cool is in the eye of the beholder. I just be myself, and I'm happy it comes off as cool. So I don't really have an answer to that, because your cool is your own cool. Nobody else can be cool like you. So I should ask you the same thing. Whitney Job, oh boy. What do you have against the use of the word jazz? This is a can of worms, but I'll do my best to be as brief as I can. Essentially, the word jazz was not given to the music by the people who created the music. The word jazz comes from a more derogatory term known as jazz, spelled with 2 S's. I'm not going to go into exactly what it means, but it does not have great origins. And again, the people who created jazz music as it's known are Black American people. That is an undeniable fact, but they are not the ones who gave the music that name. It was imposed by, just to be frank, racist white America. This is during the early 1900s when this came about, and that really kind of institutionalized the music in the industry, in terms of the music industry. So if musicians wanted to make a living playing this music, then they would have to accept the umbrella of jazz. So there are racial connotations there, and there's a lot of narratives that go back decades of some of the most prominent musicians like Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Max Roach, talking about how this music can go by so many other names. And again, we did not give it this name. It's been known as social music. It's been known as Black classical music. And most contemporarily, it's known as Black American music by one of my favorite trumpet players named Nicholas Payton, who is the front runner of the BAM movement. Again, Black American music, really trying to remind the world where this music comes from. Not that no one else can play it, but that it does have roots in Black American people in this country, in America, creating in spite of adversity and racism. Whitney asked the second question, who's your favorite YouTube fragrance reviewer? I simply don't have one. I watch quite a few. I don't have a favorite reviewer. Gail Ann says, do you ever wear fragrances for women? If yes, would you tell someone who asks, what are you wearing, that it is a woman's fragrance? The construct of gender in fragrances is something I'm trying to get away from. I like to see fragrances as more of having personality, more so than gender. And I've talked about this in a video before. I'll link that here. The fact that ingredients in fragrances are not gendered, but for some reason throughout time, the scents of some of those ingredients have been placed on this side or that side in terms of male or female. Gender has been commoditized in that way, and there's no fighting it. Either you go with the current or you fight against it. To put it simply, I just had to get that out there. But to put it simply, yes, there are female fragrances that I have worn or do wear, and I have no problem saying what it is. If people smell me and they say, hey, you smell really good, what is that? And I tell them what it is, whatever the heck it is actually doesn't matter, because the fact that they liked it, that's what matters. The perception would not change, even if they found out it was a women's fragrance. And if they did change and they said, oh, that's women's, actually I don't like it, then those are not the kind of people I want to be hanging around. Simple as that. Okay, that's it. I didn't answer all the questions, but those are the ones that I feel like had some depth to it that I did want to touch on. This turned out to be much longer than I anticipated, but I hope you learned a bit about me in this context. And I would like to do more of these more often. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see more of these kind of videos where you get to know me a little bit more personally. Please subscribe. Once again, I really appreciate your viewership, and please like this video if you do like this kind of content, and thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.